On June 2nd, 2013, officers with the Toledo Police Department knocked on the door of a modest home on Federal Street in Toledo, Ohio. The visit was a welfare check prompted by concern for 4-year-old Elena Steinfurth. Family members had been unable to reach her and were given conflicting explanations about where she was. When officers made contact, Elena's mother, Angela Steinfurth, told them the child was with a babysitter. According to later court records and reporting by The Blade, she provided a name but no immediately verifiable details. Inside the home, officers did not observe visible signs of violence or distress that would justify a forced entry or a broader search. They left without finding Elena. 12 days later, on June 14, 2013, investigators opened a freezer in the basement of a vacant house a few blocks away. Inside were Elena's remains. The welfare check had found nothing. The truth had been in a basement, close by, concealed. Elena lived in Toledo with her mother and younger sister. Her father, Terry Steinfurth, remained involved in her life but did not have custody. In late May and early June 2013, family members expected to see her. When they could not confirm her location and received inconsistent answers, concern escalated. On June 2nd, her father contacted police. At that stage, officers were responding to a parent who insisted the child was safe but elsewhere. Welfare checks are limited in scope. Without probable cause or exigent circumstances, officers cannot lawfully conduct full searches of private homes. There were no immediate indicators of a crime inside the Federal Street residence. On June 3rd, police formally declared Elena missing. As investigators attempted to verify the babysitter's identity, Angela Steinfurth's account began to unravel. Authorities were unable to confirm the existence of the person she described. She later admitted the babysitter did not exist. Attention shifted to Stephen King, Angela's former boyfriend, who had access to a nearby vacant property on Federal Street. According to trial testimony, King had been around the children during the time frame when Elena was last seen. On June 14th, acting under search warrants obtained as the investigation developed, officers searched the basement of that vacant house. In a freezer, they found Elena's body. In 2014, Stephen King was tried in Lucas County Common Pleas Court. Prosecutors presented forensic evidence and medical testimony indicating that Elena died from blunt force trauma in late May 2013. The jury found King guilty of aggravated murder and related charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Angela Steinfurth later pleaded guilty to child endangerment and obstruction of justice. She was sentenced to prison for failing to protect her daughter and misleading investigators. Public attention returned to the initial welfare check. Some question whether more aggressive action on June 2nd might have changed the outcome. Law enforcement officials stated that officers acted within the legal limits of the information available at the time. There was no formal finding that procedures had been violated. Medical testimony presented at trial indicated that Elena had likely died days before she was reported missing. If accurate, that timeline suggests a crime had already occurred before officers conducted the welfare check. The case nonetheless highlighted structural realities of such calls. Welfare checks depend on what officers can see and verify in the moment. They rely heavily on truthful information from occupants. Without evidence of immediate danger, constitutional protections limit how far officers can intrude. There were also questions about the timing of an Amber Alert. Authorities stated that specific criteria must be met, including confirmation of an abduction and sufficient descriptive details. At the time of the initial report, those conditions had not been established. Elena's case became part of broader discussions about missing child investigations, coordination between agencies, and the difficulty of assessing risk when a caregiver provides false information. What remains documented is this. On June 2nd, officers were told a child was safe elsewhere. They did not observe evidence that justified a deeper search. On June 14th, with warrants and expanded suspicion, investigators opened a basement freezer and uncovered the truth. The contrast between those moments' reassurance and revelation defines the case. It underscores how proximity does not guarantee visibility. Critical facts can exist within walking distance of an initial inquiry, hidden behind deception and legal thresholds. In the end, the tragedy was not caused by a missed stairwell, but by violence inflicted on a child and the deliberate attempt to conceal it. The welfare check encountered a false narrative at a time when the evidence required to challenge it had not yet been assembled. Sometimes the distance between uncertainty and confirmation is not measured in miles, but in floors.